Good morning. I hope you have your Bibles this morning. If you would, get those out, whether it's paperback form or phone form. There's also a couple of Bibles in the back. If you need one, please take one of those. Those are free. We want everybody to have a Bible if you need one. And so you're free to take that one and then take it home, all right? And so, but I want you to turn to 1 Thessalonians. We are actually in our last 2 weeks of finishing this letter out. I'm going to try to keep my time okay this morning. I've 2 weeks without preaching, and usually you feel like you got a lot to say, and really no more than usual, but you just, sometimes you're like, man, I really want a break, and then you get to the break, and then you're like, wow, I really want to get back, and so that's how I feel about it. About preached to a few people at Disney World, so they needed it in some cases. We get to that later, though. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, in its original form, it was just simply a letter. It wasn't broken up into chapter and verse. It helps us a little bit guide through it. But we're going to look at verses 12 through 15. If you're fairly new to what we do, this is pretty straightforward. We take books of the Bible, and we really go from chapter 1, verse 1 through the end of it, and we every now and then, like if people are out and we got some people filling in, they may have crazy books like Haggai or their own open sermon that we talk about beforehand. They'll pick some verses to do, and so 1 Thessalonians, though, is what we've been going through for a while now. Paul writes this letter to a church that he had started. He was chased out of town fairly quickly after starting this church, and so this letter is an encouragement to them. It is also some instructions in some cases, but overall, he has gotten a report back from Timothy, who he sent back to check on them, that they're doing okay. They're holding strong in their faith, even with just a little information. And they are genuinely loving each other and loving those around them. And so Paul has got some commendation in this letter to them, but also, as we're going to see here, he's going to finish it up with some instructions. So if you would follow along with me, we're going to read the verses and simply go right back to verse 12 and track through them, okay? So verse 12 through 15, follow along with me. It says, "We ask you, brothers, to respect those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. And we urge you, brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all. See that no one repays anyone evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to everyone." Now, we could have kept going. It's actually one thought, and so I usually don't like to break up thoughts. However, it was a lot to try to go all the way to the end in 1 week. And so I picked a good spot to stop at, and then we'll finish it up next week. But for these verses, let's look at verse 12. Paul here is bringing the letter to a close, and what he's going to do is he's going to give rapid-fire advice to close it out. And you'll see these in very short sentences even next week. But it almost seems like he's running out of space or paper. I don't know if it was hard to come by in ancient times, and so maybe he's coming to the end of his page, or this is all he has to say. But he's rapid fire advice, trying to get in just a little bit left that he's thinking off the top of his head that they need to know. Because remember, there's no email coming back, there's no quick response, and so once this letter is sent, it's going to be months before he hears anything back from them. And so he's got to get as much information to them as possible before he closes this letter out. Now, to align these, as we see, with the same tone with the rest of the letter, we can take this section as best practices, okay, to stay strong, to get stronger, and to keep growing in the Lord and as a church body. So Paul he's not creating a brand new thought or different tone. This is the same that he's had through the whole thing. This is to make them stronger, to keep them strong, or to have them keep growing. And it says, "We ask you, brothers," all right? This is a general term that means everyone encompassed, so it could be brothers or sisters, but he's basically talking, this is for everyone, talking to the entire church here. And what does he start off with? The first of the final instructions that Paul's going to give deals with people's view of leadership in the church. Now, I wanted to make this clear. This is talking about within the church body. Now, we have other places in Scripture that we know that we should respect leadership and things like that, but let's make sure that we're not getting outside of what the context is talking about here. So although that these are ideals that could be spread out for all of leadership, this is specifically talking about within the church, all right, the church body, how to view leadership in the church body. And let me just tell you, by the way, it's really weird to preach about these things, all right? So any type of, like, how to treat me or other leadership, it's really odd to, like, preach to you guys about it, but we're going to get through it, okay? And so what does he say about leadership? Notice here, respect those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you. First thing he says is respect them. Okay? It conveys the idea of acknowledging those in leadership, meaning that you understand and you say, hey, you are in leadership. I recognize that fact, that you are over me, God ordained, by the way. All right? It's also probably could be better translated even to appreciate those that are in leadership. Okay? So the idea of respect is the idea of appreciating those in leadership. It's important to notice here, though, I want you to see something, that Paul does not make any specific appeal to the office or title, though. So notice he doesn't say respect the elders or respect the lead pastor or respect this type of person in leadership. And so what does he do? What he does here is he doesn't limit this to a certain title or office in the idea of leadership. This is very important, by the way, for our church and our structure. All right? He says, respect those that are over you in the Lord. All right? And instead, Paul focuses on the function and the activities of leadership rather than the title. So, notice what does leadership do? Those who labor among you. These are not people that are lording over and just simply telling you what to do just because they now have a certain title. These are people that are working right beside you to get the things done for the Lord. And those who admonish you, okay? Now, listen, this is like the idea of them warning you, having tough conversations with you. By the way, those aren't fun for leadership people to have, by the way, but they're necessary. And a good leader has those conversations. They're willing to step into that space. Why? Because we love you more than just simply trying to please you, right? And so here it says to respect those. So Paul doesn't limit it to a title or an office, but instead how the function of the position is working out. That's what we respect. 3 characteristics of the function of leaders that we've said: those who work hard, those they care for you, those that are over you is the idea of that as well. Not just because they've been placed over you, but that they care for you in a almost a fatherly or motherly manner. And they take on the task of advising you spiritually. So these are the functions of leadership. And we're to respect, appreciate those people that have been put in that place. Now, why do I say it's important for our structure? Because we divvy this out more so than your traditional churches do. You have house church pastors that are not employed by Church Project. They don't get paid for it, but they're put into leadership in a, I would say, a very God-ordained way of being a house church pastor even. Trey, where'd Trey go? Trey, how much have we paid you to be a house church pastor? 0. And guess what? By our structure, we will never pay house church pastors. This is a calling on their lives. It's not the structure of what we're trying to do. It's not that we're trying to get to one day to where then we can pay all of our house church pastors. That is literally a no-no in our Church Project understanding. These are people that are called by God to step into these roles. And so guess what? Although Trey is not recognized on our website as this paid pastor of our staff, he's still to be respected as a leader. And same thing with Daniel. Same thing with our elders. To appreciate leadership. I think this is super important, by the way. I will say that there have been a couple of church stops to where just staff and leadership in general is not appreciated or trusted or followed. And you know what? None of those churches were reaching the potential that they could have. It's not that they didn't have good people. It's not that they didn't have a good service set up. It's that there was not a unity in mission. It says then, it goes beyond that, by the way, not just to respect and appreciate, but it says to esteem them highly in love. this word esteem here. Consider someone carefully and then have a high opinion of them. All right? So to actually think about this person. So Paul's putting this for the church body to leadership. Now, I'm going to use this example. Trey, I'm picking on you this morning, okay? A few weeks ago, I know. And this is Trey's favorite thing to be talked about in public, all right? Trey shaved his mustache a couple weeks ago. I don't know if anybody noticed this, all right? And before that, I told Trey how much I liked his mustache. And then he goes and shaves it, I think to please his wife, all right? Which I think was a bad choice, all right? I'm like, who are you going to please, your pastor or your wife? Come on. Trey has now since grown it back, so I appreciate it. But during that time, like, I started looking at Trey's face. I'm like, I don't like it as much as I used to, right? I was like, I like the mustache. But you know what? Then I considered Trey carefully. I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? But Trey's had all these other qualities that I really love too. And so even though I look at Trey and I'm like, it's just not as cool as I thought it, used to, I look at him like, but I still love Trey. I consider him carefully, right? And so all of a sudden, I didn't all of a sudden just stop following Trey or respecting Trey, right? And I'm joking and just, Trey and I are good friends, by the way, all right? But here's what we do is we see somebody in leadership and we think we don't like this about them, or we don't like a personality trait, or we just don't match up. And what we do is we allow that one thing to become the thing. And we don't consider the person carefully. We don't think about all of the other things that they bring to the table, or their other skill sets, or the things that how they work hard, or all those types of things. And you know what happens is we don't esteem them highly in love. Instead, we push back. And guess what? My personality is not going to match up with everybody in here. I'm usually a little brash. I shoot from the hip every now and then. And guess what? People don't like that sometimes. And you know what that's caused? Disunity at times. People not respect me as a leader at times. And you know what? I've made that same mistake on my side. But what Paul's saying here is, listen, not only do we appreciate leadership, but you should esteem them highly in love. Consider them carefully. Think about what all it is that they do, and maybe even things that you don't see that they do, that they possibly do. Why is that important? Because we always think we can walk in somebody else's shoes until we get the chance to. And Paul here is saying, consider this. Respect, appreciate, follow your leadership. Why? Because this is important for unity. And I think that there's this great line that Paul follows it up with that is not a separate thought, but a continuation of this thought. And he says here, to esteem them highly in love because of their work. Next sentence, be at peace among yourselves. When we appreciate leadership, when we esteem them highly in love within the church, guess what happens? Peace happens. It's not a separate thought, a continuation of what he's just said. Dissension or division a lot of times arises over the issue of leadership. You think that you should have a certain position. I can remember being a youth helper, not a youth pastor yet, a youth helper. And I loved the youth pastor that I was working under. We're still great friends today. He's the most normal one that will text me throughout the weeks asking me how I'm doing and what he can pray for. We have a great relationship. But you know what? It came to a point where I would sit there and say, you know what? I don't think I would do that. I would think I would do this. And we'd had conversations about it. And you know what? I realized that he was ministering the way that he thought he should in that place. If I thought it should be different, I needed to go somewhere else. And I did. I got a job. I became a youth pastor. And a lot of times what we do is we just simply stay and we get frustrated and we say, well, that's not what I would do. All the while, and then what do? We create this rivalry, this dissension and division because we desire something that won't be ours. And Paul's saying, be at peace when you appreciate your leadership, when you esteem them in love, you consider them, and then you love them in spite of all the things that maybe you don't like, but also you see the whole well-rounded person. Be at peace among yourselves. We are seeking unity here. I would dare to say that none of your leadership that is here at Church Project wants to see you do badly. Care about you. They many times go above and beyond to the point of stressing themselves out for that as well. See, when leadership is respected, appreciated, and thought of well, this brings peace and unification. Little things no longer take up much time, and the mission of following Jesus is much more prevalent. I just want to say this. Love your leadership and accomplish things together. I think this is what we pull from this. Love your leadership and accomplish things together. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart because I've had a lot of confrontation as a staff member on churches. And it's because people wanted control or power, and it wasn't theirs in that moment to have. And I think we need to understand that. And let me just say this, by the way. This last year of pastoring Church Project, you guys have been awesome. You do this really well. I just want to put that out there. I love you, and I love you for that. And I thank you for that because I needed a good year. And it's been a really good year. But so many times, there are people within congregations that are pushing pastors to quit. There are pastors that get unfocused because they're arguing and fighting with the congregation. They end up creating friendships with people that are bad for them because they don't feel like their congregation cares about them. And I don't want that to ever be us. I want us to be unified, at peace with one another so that we can get more done. That is really what we're called here to do, to love each other, to grow in the Lord, but also to get things done. It's hard to get things done when we're always arguing about little dumb stuff. Make sense? Love your leadership, accomplish things together. It is okay to love your leadership and to support your mission. You know what happens a lot of times, I think, in church projects too, especially ours? There's a lot of church hurt that we see come through the doors. You don't know why? Because this is kind of your last stop and last effort for church. Because all the other ones have not gone well. Or you're just kind of fed up with them. And so you stop here and say, we'll have one more thing. But you know what that usually does? It brings in a lot of baggage too, that we were more than happy to walk through with you. But I think over time, when we have a lot of church hurt, we don't know if it's okay to love leadership or to always look at them through the microscope. Now, I know it sounds odd to say that it's okay to love your leadership, all right? Sometimes I think that we take the responsibility of trying, instead of loving leadership, of policing leadership. And have a feeling that we need to point out all that we disagree with. It is biblical to support leadership. We're seeing it right here, okay? Now, I want you to hear me. This is not a promotion from my part to deify leadership in any way. Because that can happen as well. To the point that you're blinded by leadership and that we ignore abuse or moral sin that is going on. However, a leader should not have to pay for our experience or knowledge of past bad leaders. Does that make sense? This is yes, this is no. I just want to make sure. Okay. So all the bad leaders that you have seen, bad leadership in other churches that really had to be called out or nobody did call them out, please understand, this is a clean slate. And I know you bring that hurt with you, but it's not me. And until I give you that reason, let's be at peace together. And unless one of your house church pastors give you that reason. And by the way, that reason is an anti-scriptural, anti-moral issue, not a preference-driven issue. You go to Daniel's house church and you think everybody should sit in rows and he wants you to sit in a circle, that's his prerogative as your house church pastor. You just need to get in the circle, okay? And if you come to me and say, well, Daniel likes circles and I like rows, I'm going to say, I don't care, all right? You get in a circle if you're at Daniel's house. It's his house. He pays the bill. Okay, so if he wants you to just line up in a circle, and that's what you do. See, that's where we have to understand. That's why I showed you those buckets a few weeks ago. Opinions, persuasions, convictions. Guess what? Only anti-scriptural, anti-moral things are in the convictions bucket, by the way, when in view of leadership. When it becomes an opinion or a persuasion, we still follow leadership. Rebellion, by the way, and sounds very un-American and un-Texan as well. Rebellion is not always a badge of honor, okay? Not everything has to be the Boston Tea Party. Not everything has to be Remember the Alamo, all right? Most of the time, rebellion is a bad thing. Every now and then, it works out in history. But most of the time, it's a bad thing. 1 Thessalonians 5:14, he switches gears here. And so at first, he deals with the church dealing with leadership. Now he's going to switch gears with the church dealing with each other. How we deal with fellow believers within the church. Verse 14, and we urge you, brothers and sisters, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all. We get 4 different things that Paul's going to point out. I think he is continuing the idea of being peace with everyone. And he says that there are 4 different ways to deal with one another that we should practice and apply. Not just suggestions or good ideas, but that we should really look for and to do. The first one, warn those that are idle. Warn them. The word idle here is translated, it's better known as in ancient Greece as a military term that means one who leaves the rank. Basically, someone who's drifted off, someone who's not doing the things that it calls for in a Christian walk. So it doesn't have to be a certain moral problem, just someone who all of a sudden is not following Christ very closely anymore. Speaks of the drifting away. You think of a military unit, right? Usually they're all straight, they're in line, it's together. You have one goober who steps out of that line, they're probably getting yelled at. So same thing here. Warn the idle. The idle also, the idea of being disruptive to the mission. If you remember, Paul earlier states in the few verses before that leaders admonish the believers, but here Paul expands that responsibility. So if you see someone that is drifting, you know what's usually happened in the past for me as a member of staff? Someone walks up to me and says, hey, so-and-so is doing A, B, and C, and you should go and talk to them about it. Well, here, Paul gives that responsibility to you as well. If you're the one seeing it, the responsibility gets laid on you. Now, this doesn't mean be a jerk about it. This is in a loving way, warning the idle, those that are drifting. It gives you the responsibility as all believers within the church to warn that person, to advise them that they're drifting, to let them know that this is not the way the Christian walk is supposed to look. Those that see a brother or sister being out of line as far as their Christian walk, you have the responsibility to try and help correct it. We live in an age where we want to sweep things under the rug and we don't want to make anybody angry. Please understand, I was told this by a pastor that I worked under, and it served me well since then. You need to make the right decision, and you can't control how people respond to it. If you see a brother or sister drifting within the body, you see it, not just hear about it, but you see it, you understand that it's happening, and you fail to act, that's us simply denying our own responsibility to try to help that person back in. And he says, encourage the faint-hearted. Faint-hearted is someone who's discouraged, worried, or sad. We encourage those people. We encourage to see and feel the need of those brothers and sisters that are hurting or despondent. Things happen. People hit some lows. People have been in the hospital. Things have happened that are not great news. we don't just simply say, well, I just don't know what to say. We still encourage, whether it's the ministry of presence, of verbally, whatever we can do to try to lift those people up that we see are having a hard time. Christians should be known for lifting the spirits of each other. Then it says to help the weak. Now, it is vague in this who the weak are in this context of Paul's writing. And I've seen where scholars like break it out, and there's a lot of, well, the weak may mean this, and it may mean this, and well, they were having this problem. I don't think, personally, that it's meant to be contextually specific here, but rather vague on purpose to keep us really from overthinking it, like a lot of the commentaries that I read did. I think we're not supposed to overthink it. Those that are stronger help those that are weaker, whether it's in spiritually, physically, or emotionally. Help the weak. If you find yourself in a good spiritual place, find someone who's not. If you find somebody that physically is in a tough spot and you know that you can handle something for them, step into that. Emotionally, they're going through a tough time, and you know that you're in a sober-minded place that you can just be a listening ear. Offer advice if they want it. That's what help the weak is. That we simply help where we see the need to help. And then it says, be patient with everyone. Be patient with them all. Paul states the obvious to this church. All right, the pressure and stress that this church, by the way, in this context must be under, continually persecuted, continually oppressed. He says, be patient. Think about going to church and not wondering if someone's going to bust in the doors and then haul you all off. It's a little bit harder to listen to the sermon, I think, in that moment than we are today. We're just worried if we're going to get wet when we leave. They're worried if they're going to get drug off to prison. And so the pressure must have been immense. I don't know about you, but when the pressure gets turned up, my patience gets turned down. And so Paul's stating this, listen, be patient with each other. You might hit somebody when they're not on their best day. That's what Sundays a lot of times are. Traditionally for church, right? We get people's best version of themselves for Sunday morning. And I just want to tell you, it's okay if we don't get your best version here at the gathering on Sunday. I want your real version. I want your genuine version. Nate asked me this morning, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm anxious right now. Like, I'm trying to switch gears to get on sermon time. And why? Because I want to be honest with Nate. I want him to know where I'm at. And that's what I want for all of us, by the way. I want us to be able to come in here and we don't have to put on a face or a fake, ingenuine type of person because we think we're at church. We're with people that should be trying to lift us up. Be patient with each other. By the way, this patience with each other creates this calming effect in the congregation as well. It's also a fruit of the Spirit that reflects how God deals with us. I want to encourage you this morning. If you find that you lack patience, that you get set off easily, you need opportunity to apply patience. And so I'm going to prescribe to you a trip to Disney World. Because I got to the practice of patience for all last week as we went to Disney World. And you know what my favorite, my least favorite people at Disney World are? Okay, if you're walking, right, what side should you walk on? Thank you. Okay, thank you. I thought that too. I thought that was universal. But there's a lot of foreign people there, okay, from other countries. And I don't know if drifting to the right side, like they're just confused because that's the side they drive on. But you would have people coming straight at you. And I mean, like you're dodging them, just trying to walk down the road. And then my least favorite, the ones that really tested my patience, are the people that feel that it's necessary for their family of 15 to stop in the middle of the walkway. And I just had to, as we're walking, for whatever reason, the kids always drifted in front of us. And so we would hit them. I was like, go around, go around, go around. And we would just have to drift around. So I encourage you, if you have trouble with patience, you need to go to Disney World, because you will get so many opportunities to expand your patience. When we see these things, encourage the faint-hearted, warn the idle, help the weak, be patient with everyone. Paul here, I think what he really is telling us as a church, pay attention and feel someone's need. I think the worst thing that we can do when we come to church is feel like it's, what do I get out of this? It's the worst place that we can be. I think it's an immature place to be. I think when we're first believers, then it's okay. Like, we're growing. Like, what do I get from this? Where do I need to grow in this? But when we get longer in our walk with Christ, as we're to go with our namesake, we're a more well-rounded project later. I think when we walk in, and we've been walking with Christ for over a decade, for years now, and we come in and say, what am I going to get out of this? What's being done for me right now? I think we're vastly missing a great opportunity. And I think when Paul sits here and says, make sure you get something out of the sermon, make sure you get your prayer requests made, nothing here is self-centered of what Paul is saying. How can you serve someone else? I think when you show up to the gathering at house church, pay attention. See what need can be filled. Whether it's encouraging someone, listening to someone's story. We talked about on Wednesday, our first Wednesday, talking about this being the summer of growth, and we're going to grow individually, growing closer to the Lord, but also one of the ways that we want to grow is with our relationships with one another. The first step in that is paying attention to each other. Paying attention. What can I step in and just help somebody with? What does someone need to hear? What do I see that I need to step into someone's life? Pay attention. Love shows up in our ability and our intentionality to pay attention to the needs of others. It's easy at times, by the way, it's easy at times to see the big needs and jump on board when we're providing meals or funds to help out someone, like something big. Like, those are easy times to jump on board. However, it takes real work and love for others to notice when someone is drifting, when someone is hurting without telling everyone. That takes focus, intentionality. Be willing to listen. Eavesdrop at times. It takes intentional love to know when someone needs you to be present or to encourage them. Patience shows that you value someone else's time more than your own. That's why we get impatient, right? My time is so important that I couldn't possibly slow down to deal with you. When we have patience with someone, we show that their time is more valuable than our own. This gets along the lines of when Paul says, count others more significant than yourselves. Then Paul finishes it, and he says, see that no one repays anyone evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to everyone. Pretty clear-cut and dry how Paul's going to end this thing. See that no one repays evil with evil. It speaks of getting even, revenge on someone because of an offense. There's no room for this type of response by a Christian, by the way. Revenge, retaliation. Nothing that opens the door for that. This is retaliation and the refusal to forgive, by the way, is the idea of repaying evil for evil. This is the opposite of having peace. Instead of this type of behavior and way of thinking, this way of behavior promotes fighting and scheming to fight, by the way. All of us have had a moment in here that we've wanted to get back at somebody. And I want you, and maybe you're having it right now. Maybe it's towards me. I don't know. Think back, though, of how much time it consumed in your mind trying to figure out the best way to get back at someone. And it could have been trying to figure out how to word a Facebook post to really gut punch them. How much time that consumed in our lives. And all you're doing is scheming a way to get back at someone. Think now of how many good things were wasted or not done because of that time that we took trying to do that. And that's what Paul's trying to do, is throw this out and replace it with this. Don't repay someone evil for evil. Don't take the opportunity or the time to think about giving somebody a shot back. Don't consume yourselves with how wronged you've been and how to get back at them, or how wronged you've been and you're refusing to forgive them as well. That eats up the time as well. Instead, Paul says, always seek to do good to one another. So first it deals with the church. Seek to do good to one another within the congregation, the body. And if it hasn't happened yet, there will be somebody in the church one day that wronged you. And you'll have to fight against the natural inclination to scheme about how to get back at them, to say just the right cutting word. You have to fight against that, to then always seek to do good to them. And then Paul goes even farther. So always seek to do good to one another. Constant lookout for ways to do good, by the way. This is also intentionality and paying attention. How do we do good to someone else, but then also to everyone? So it's not just limited to fellow believers who they love and who they have unified with, and they're kind of them against the world mentality in Thessalonica right now. So it's easy to love one another. It's easy to kind of bypass this, but then to everyone. And for them, it's the very people who wish they didn't exist. It's the very people that would shut them down if they had the opportunity to. It's the very people that if they didn't think that they would get punished for it, would kill them. Paul says, don't seek to just do good to those that love you, but to everyone. When we're always seeking to do good to each other and to everyone, that should make us think about the words that we say, the actions that we take, what we spend time thinking about. This is an inside-out change when we allow this to be what controls our lives. I want to encourage you this morning. Choose grace and goodness over revenge and retaliation. Choose grace and goodness. I remember a trial a few years ago. You guys may remember it. I don't know the names. I know it happened in Dallas, and I know it was a police officer that walked in her wrong apartment and shot someone who she thought was in her own apartment. Well, it blew up in the Metroplex. If you were here during the time, you remember at least the gist of it. And you know what? I'll never forget the victim's brother taking the stand, and how on the stand, so the brother was a music leader at a church, his brother was as well, and he gets on the stand, and they are, I think it's the sentencing time of the trial, so she's already been found guilty, she's going to get sentenced, and of course everyone on one side is calling for her head, and everyone on the other side is saying go for it, like there's no middle ground, and everybody's just out for whatever agenda and everything. It was a long ordeal, and anything like that where it's just so black and white and nobody ever looks at both sides, it drives me crazy. And I remember this young man getting on the stand and him saying, I forgive you, and he asked to give her a hug, and the judge allowed it. I believe he allowed it, or maybe she didn't allow it. I can't remember. And then the lady was given a Bible. And in that moment, though, you saw forgiveness and love in someone who had every right to choose what the rest of the world says, yeah, you deserve revenge and retaliation. Give her everything. Does she need to be punished? Possibly. Based on our justice system, yes. But in that moment, when everybody is calling for him to act a certain way, he radically reacts in the way of Christ. And to me, it was so much more powerful than the sentence or the trial or anything like that. That is what we should look like in the world around us. The world may say it's okay. And the way that we operate with each other, nobody's going to look down on it. But we are called as Christians in this walk to rise above and to act like Christ. And man, he was radical. Man, he would go against the grain. That doesn't mean that you're progressive or liberal or conservative. That means you're like Christ in the moment. Please hear what I'm saying here. And Paul says, choose grace and goodness over revenge. If we let the Lord take care of judgment, then it frees us up to look for opportunities to do good. Revenge is something that always, by the way, causes us to look back and live in the past. We're always looking backwards, reliving the moment, figuring out what that person deserves based off of what was done to us back here. Grace always pushes us to look forward. Because it's a past action that's created hope that we have ahead of us. This morning, I want us to be a people that are on mission together, that choose grace regularly. If Jesus didn't seek retaliation, my goodness, what excuse do we have? The creator of the universe was slapped, mocked, spit on by his own creation, and yet he didn't speak a word. He took it, was beaten, nailed to a cross by the very people that he created. And yet, all done to save them. So whatever wrong that we have had done to us, and I'm speaking to myself here too, there are things that keep me up at night, make me wake up frustrated. But if he can forgive that, can't we forgive, move on, and look forward and choose grace and goodness in the moment? Let's be sober-minded, clear-headed, to figure out who needs encouragement, who needs help, who needs a little bit more patience, who needs to be warned that if you keep going down this road, it's not going to end well. That takes our attention, our focus, our love. If you would stand with me this morning, we're going to have the band come back up. I just want us to go into this time of reflection. And I want us to think through, we're heading into the summer. Who can we have a better relationship with? First, starting in this room. Who can we get to know better? There's two ways. I always saw two kids in the youth group. There was one that would come into the youth group, stand in the corner, and then go home and complain that nobody would come and talk to them. Then there was the kid who would just attempt to get in the circles, attempt to get to know some things about people, attempt to just kind of weave into things, and then all of a sudden you look up one week and they're part of the group. I want to encourage you. You can't go stand back in the corner and complain that nobody paid attention to you. Who do you need to get to know? And I want to encourage you. We get into these house churches for the sake of discipleship, for the sake of community, but that doesn't mean that we're creating cliques that's your group of people that you talk to and you don't talk to anybody else. We're still a small congregation overall. And so it gives us a great opportunity to go and have a conversation with someone that we haven't had with yet. To get to know someone else's story. And I want us coming out of the summer to know each other. To care about each other. My goodness, trade a number and send someone a text. Check on them through the week. Have lunch together. Invite their family over to have dinner. And you might get an invite back. And guess what? It can even be someone that you've never sat down with before. Let's just get out of our comfort zones a little bit. Let's get to know each other. We're in a really good spot right now. And we're doing these things already well. But here's the thing. I don't want us to just be doing them well. I want us to be great at it. I want us to love each other to even a different level. By the way, this church, I have seen Christ lived out more over this last year than I think I have in all of ministry that I've been in up until now. So you're doing really well. But I want us to be great. I want us to go even farther. I want us to pick people up from their worst days. I want us to encourage people to love people, to show up when they expect us to show up, and then show up when they don't expect us to show up. And it's doable. But it takes focus. It takes attention. It takes love. And it takes us simply getting out of our own way and saying, I'm going to love you in spite of my comfort level. I'm going to love you in spite of your personality and my personality. I'm going to love you in spite of how busy I am. And imagine if all across the room, we all commit to doing that. I think that's something that speaks to the world. If not the world, our community. I love you guys. And I want us to keep going. I'm going to pray for us. If you have kids, that's the time to go and get them, bring them back. Let's all worship together to end this thing. And then also, we have communion available. We do this every single week, not because we don't want to forget doing it, but because we think it has a certain place of importance. We do communion because what do those things represent? It represents Christ forgiving us. It represents him shedding his innocent blood on our behalf. It is the memorial each and every week to remember what he has done and that he is our ultimate example. That project that we are, it's all working to a place of looking more and more like him. And what better way than every single week reminding ourselves of who he really was, what he did. He came to earth to willingly die for you while we were in complete rebellion against him. Let me pray for us and then you guys move. Lord, I thank you for this time. I thank you for your goodness, Lord. Lord, I pray that we would be a people that love our leadership. Lord, I pray that we be a people that pay attention to one another, that love each other. And Lord, that we would look for grace and goodness and opportunities to do good. That we would allow judgment to be yours. That we would allow retribution and retaliation to be something that you've set up for those that you choose. And Lord, allow us simply to focus on what's ahead. Your glorious return and a life lived out for you. A spirit-led life. Lord, we love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.